There are two ways to open a clip from the browser into the viewer. You can either double click on the icon, not on the name, double click on the icon, that loads it into the viewer. You have a scrubber bar down here, just as in the log and transfer window. This little line with a yellow triangle on it is called a playhead. There are playheads throughout the application, and they show you where you are in the clip. So if you mouse down on the clip here, you can scrub through it. To open another clip, another way to do that is to select the clip and press the return key, not the enter key, but the return key. That loads it into the viewer. Notice here when I'm at the beginning of the clip, you can get to the beginning of the clip with the home key. Press the home key, takes you to the beginning. This overlay on the left here, that indicates that you are at the beginning of the media. This is the first frame of the QuickTime file. The number over here on the left is the duration of the clip, just under 4 minutes and 34 seconds. The number on the right over here is the time code. At the beginning of the clip here, the time code is at 0, and as you scrub through it, you'll see the time code will change up here. There are tabs across the top. There's a video tab, and there are 2 tabs for mono. If you have a stereo clip, there'll be just 1 tab for stereo, but with mono, there's a separate tab for A1 and A2. There's a filters tab, and there's a motion tab. We'll look at those later. You can play the video with the space bar, as we did in the log and transfer window, or you can use the J, K, and L keys. The K key will pause, the L key will play forwards, and if you press it a bunch of times, it'll go fast forward. K will pause, and the J key will play backwards. Press it a bunch of times, and it will go fast backwards. So we obviously don't want to use the whole 4.5 minutes of the interview. We want to select specific sound bites. So up near the beginning here, there's a sound bite around the 17-second mark. So I'll just play forward. I want to start where she says my background. So I'm going to mark an endpoint. Just as we did in the log and transfer window, press the I key to mark an endpoint.
My background in photography is starting in school, in college.
And that's where I want to end. I'll mark an out point with the O key. There are a number of ways to edit this into the timeline. But before we do that, I want to set up where this clip goes. The video will go on to V1 here, and there are 2 tracks of audio, A1 and A2. In the audio tabs here in the viewer, in A1, there is audio for Kat's interview. But in mono A2, there's no audio. The audio is only recorded on A1, and it's mono. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect or decouple A2 so that only A1 is the target or destination track. So when I edit this, only the sound from A1 will go into the timeline. To put it into the timeline, there are a number of different ways to do it. One way is grab the clip, drag it to the edit overlay in the canvas. In the canvas, the edit overlay will appear. We go to overwrite, and right in the middle, drop it, and the clip will drop into the timeline. Timeline playhead goes to the end, waiting for the next shot. To go to another point to get another soundbite, one way is, if you have the timecode numbers, just go down to it. Just type in the number. So I want to go down to 48 seconds and 21 frames. Just go to 4821. Just start typing and the numbers will appear. Press the return key or enter key and the playhead will go there. You can also move with the left and right arrow keys. You can move incrementally in 1 frame at a time. And shift left and right arrow keys will move you in 1 second increments. I'll mark an endpoint here. And I'll mark that as my out point. Another way to edit this into the timeline is to use these little buttons here. The red button is the overwrite button. Click on that, drops the clip into the timeline. Let's go to 127.05. Just type in 127.05, enter, and that's where the playhead will go to. I'm going to mark an endpoint here and show you the third way to edit your material into the timeline.
I'm influenced more by music than by anything else.
And we'll mark an out point just before she begins again. Mark an out point and edit that into the timeline with F10. F10 is overwrite, drops into the timeline. Notice when I did that, it made the timeline the active window. You can always tell which is the active window. The line up here at the top becomes brighter. This is darker, so the timeline is the active window. You can move between the active window with keyboard shortcuts. Command 1 is the viewer, Command 2 is the canvas, 3 is the timeline, and Command 4 is the browser. Let's open up the Kirk interview. So double click on the Kirk interview, load that into the viewer. And we're going to mark an endpoint around 1810. go back to the beginning and find that.
Okay, now my back, and now
You can do that on the fly. I did that while I was playing backwards. I'm going to mark an out point.
my background is traditional art through grammar school. From I remember drawing since the age of 5.
And that'll be the out point. Now, I don't want to edit this into the timeline at the end of the cat interviews. I don't want them all cat and then all Kirk. I want to intersperse the two. So I'm going to start off with the Kirk interview. So in the timeline, I'm going to press the home key. It takes the playhead back to the beginning. And now to insert this into the timeline, grab it and drag it to the canvas, not to overwrite, because that'll wipe out the cat interview. Drop it on insert. That'll push everything out of the way and make room for itself. You can switch back to the viewer with the Q key. That's a handy little shortcut. And let's go down to 3325. And we'll put an in point there.
Till the point where I went to college at the Illinois Institute of Art and took up media arts and animation.
And that'll be my out point. In the timeline, I'm going to switch to the timeline. You can switch to the canvas with the Q key from the viewer, and that will also be in the timeline. The canvas and the timeline are essentially the same thing. So if I use the down arrow key, it will move me between edit points. The up arrow key will move me to the previous edit point. The down arrow key will move me to the next edit point. So I'm now between the two cat interviews, and I want to insert this into the timeline. I can use the little yellow button here at the bottom of the canvas. Click that, and we'll insert that shot into the timeline. And let's do one more at 1 minute and 14 frames. That's 10014. Enter. We'll mark an in point there.
I wanted to do something that I enjoyed throughout my life. It wasn't about the money or anything like that. I remember being young and seeing artwork, and you get this sense of inspiration when you see something. It makes your eyes widen and makes you smile. Makes your eyes widen and
Somewhere around there, I'll mark the out point. We
yeah.
can go and trim it later, but I just want to put it in roughly. So I'll mark an out point here, and we're going to insert this in after the next cat interview. Switch over to the canvas with the Q key, press the down arrow key, and to insert it, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut F9. F9 for insert, F10 for overwrite. In the timeline window, a really useful keyboard shortcut is Shift-Z, which is fit to window. It basically fits all the content of the timeline window into the window. Now that you've got your clips in the timeline, one thing I want to show you is how to move them around. So let's say, for instance, I decide that I really want the cat interview in front of the Kirk interview. Simple way to do that is to do what's called a shuffle edit or swap edit. Grab the clip, drag it to where you want to put it, hold down the Option key. Notice the cursor changes it in this little hooked arrow, then release the mouse, and we'll shuffle around. Do that again. Grab cat, drag it to where you want to put it. Make sure snapping is turned on. It'll snap to the edit point. Hold down the Option key and release the mouse. You can turn snapping on and off with the N key. N will toggle this on and off, this little button here, and that turns snapping on and off. With the shuffle edit, you can only move one clip at a time. But if you want to move a group of clips, so if I select these 3 clips and I want to put them somewhere else, or let's say these 3 in the middle here, I want to cut them out of the timeline and put them in the clipboard so that I can paste them somewhere else. So to do that, instead of using Command X, you use Shift X, which is a ripple cut. And then I'm going to paste it somewhere else. Let's say I want to paste it to the beginning. Press the home key to put it to the beginning. I don't do Command V to paste it. I used Shift V to do a paste insert, and that will paste it back into the timeline at a different location. So that's the way to move groups of clips from one place to another.